screen so you can see what I'm also looking at. There we go. Let's see, does that work? Can you see the
Yeah,
presentation or yeah,
yeah,
okay,
it's here.
perfect. Cool. All right. So yeah, what are we talking about today? Fostering the human connection in this crisis, because this is not just about remote work, because we're also in this weird situation that nobody has ever been in before, and it's extremely uncertain and feels quite uncomfortable. And we don't know when it will stop, and like when we can actually see each other again in the office and have all these things that you naturally do when you're together in an office. So it can feel kind of lonely, to just be on your own at home, right? So what can you do to actually get this team spirit back and like this feeling of working together with a bunch of other humans, and just making cool stuff happen? Be a warrior princess on a unicorn, but with the rest of your team. um, and so the one thing that I would like to ask you right now is like, what are the things that you would say make us human? Like, what are things that you can think of that are very specific to humans and that we might actually kind of miss during this time? If you just type some stuff in the chat, that would be really cool. Or like your ideas. Yeah, communication, sense of humor, emotions. Yeah. So the two things I wrote down are empathy and conversations. And so I just want to quickly talk about what that means. And I'm just going to go with like the standard definition. So empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing. So that you can actually understand the other people. And if you bring that to the table, you build a lot more trust. And especially in a time where no one is really sure what's happening, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand them better, and try to understand where they're coming from. Communication in general is kind of hard sometimes because you don't actually see a lot of what I'm actually doing stuff with my hands, but it's actually out of the screen. So you don't actually see me doing all these weird things, or sometimes people don't have their cameras on, so you don't actually get any kind of feedback to what you're saying. So it's easy to misunderstand basically anything. So try to just, before you assume about what someone's meaning or how they said something, maybe try to understand where they're coming from. And then conversations are interactive communication between two or more people, in which news and ideas get exchanged. So really important here is the interactive part. So it's not a one-sided thing. Well, right now we are having not a conversation. I'm just talking to you. But with your team, you should actually have a conversation and make sure that everyone feels comfortable enough to actually join into this conversation, especially now where everyone's sitting at home in their different surroundings and environments, and just being there on their own. For some people, going to work is most of the social interaction they get in a day. So there's a lot of things to kind of keep in the back of your head and make sure you're helping those people. So let's do this chat thing again, because that worked really well. What are things that you are doing to keep a conversation going with your team, and things you do at work at the moment to help with these kinds of things? Anything, small or big, doesn't matter. It's kind of like, type it in the chat. Yeah, I love that. Share jokes. So important. listening and asking questions. What are other people doing? Let me know. Catch ups, check-ins. Cool. So we're basically on the same page. All right. So this is one of the things is our check-ins and check-outs with your coworkers. You can just simply ask the question, how are you doing at the beginning of a meeting, and just taking some time to chat about it. You can also use some techniques like, I don't know if you've heard of them. There's a thing called a happiness radar, a weather forecast, the mood-o-meter. I'll show you an example in a second. And just kind of be mindful that people are probably not feeling their A game right now. So even if some people might not really say anything, sometimes if they do have their cameras on, you can kind of get an idea of how they're doing. And don't forget to check out. So at the end of a meeting, kind of go back to either the check-in, do the same technique, or just kind of do a round robin. How's everyone doing right now? Just to get a feeling. So here's the example of the mood-o-meter. You can just use emojis on Slack in something like a mural board, which is an online collaboration tool, and whatever works for you and your team and the tools you have available. It's very simple, and you can just kind of find different emotions. Doesn't have to be this exact thing, but it helps. And then just generally make some time to talk, and talk about non-work related things. Like take some time before a meeting, or before you really get into the work topics. Take some time after the meeting, if just 5 minutes. Just chat about anything. What are you binging on Netflix right now? I don't know. What's going to be for dinner later? There are a lot of topics that are easy to just chat about, that just help you to, don't do the shop talk. We've also been doing like really cool virtual coffees. We'll just use our Slack channel. We have a morning check-in where it's just, if people are up for it, we'll just meet up, have a coffee, chat for 15 minutes about anything but work, and then we'll start working. You can have lunch together or after work drinks, which is a fun option to be in kind of a different setting, even though you're probably in the same spot at home. Like I always have this background, like everyone who's ever talked to me on a video chat has seen this background. But it's still fun to kind of get out of your normal routines and do something else. And I think someone said sharing jokes is important. And allow people to be silly. Take some time for being stupid and doing like fun things. We usually do icebreakers in our team meeting. We've done so many. We've done one where we shared with each other what would be a cool location to go on a vacation, which obviously nobody can go on vacations right now, but then we're just kind of talking about places that we would like to visit. So that was fun. We've done a thing, guess the movie or guess the TV show, that ended up being like a Slack game where we just used Slack and did a thread in there to describe a movie only using emojis, and then the next person has to guess, and then you just kind of keep on going. Use filters when you're in a video chat, like Snapcam, like put the dog face on your face or whatever makes you happy. It's just a bit silly and fun. So here is guess the movie. If anyone can guess one of these three movies, use the chat if you want to. These were actual examples of our game. So just look at the emojis. Can you guess the movie? Yes, Finding Nemo. And E.T., yep. The first one is quite literal, but also a bit of an obscure reference to a not very good movie, Sharknado. If you get really bored during quarantine, maybe that you give that a try. So yeah, I think we've had a Slack thread with 150 messages of people guessing each other's movies and then putting up new ones. So that was really fun. And also a way to share this fun asynchronously. So you don't have to be in a meeting at the same time in a video chat. But whenever someone had some time in between, they could check in, guess a movie, and then leave again if they wanted to. Cool. Yeah, there are a few things I'd like you to keep in mind, because video meetings are a lot more exhausting than real meetings. Just sitting in a video meeting for an hour will feel like you just spent 3 hours in a meeting, basically. And I don't know. I'm a product manager. I have a lot of meetings, but yeah, it just makes me tired sometimes. And like my team and I, we actually agreed on like very few meetings. And we try to keep them short and try to make sure that we keep the energy up. And if we can't do it, we might actually postpone things. So that's good. I've read a lot about everyone should always have their camera on in every meeting. And I used to say that too, because it's obviously nicer if you can see the other person that you're talking to. You can see their facial expressions and just understand what's happening. And it's a lot easier because this is just the way humans work and human communication works. But sometimes there are reasons why people just don't want to turn their camera off. And that is okay too. So you shouldn't force anyone to turn their camera on or like nag them about it or pressure them, make them feel bad, because you don't really know what situation they're in at the moment. Maybe, I don't know, their kids are running around in the background and they don't want to show that. For me, my cat, he usually makes an appearance when I'm in a video chat. Everyone kind of likes it. Like I'm just happy to see other people's pets or kids. I think it's totally fun. And it's part of the experience we all share at the moment. But yeah, that goes back to the empathy part where, yeah, you don't know the situation the person is in. So maybe cut them some slack and let them not turn on the video or whatever. And that is everything I just wanted to tell you, because I think it's probably more interesting if we have a bit of an interactive communication and we can do some Q&A stuff.
Yeah, okay, so please just write your names in, your questions in the chat, and I will call you out. Yeah, it's interesting what you said. To be honest, what I've noticed that we were missing during this period of isolation is that daily chats, like you just turn around to ask something or to say something and everybody's around you and everybody's there, and that part was sort of hard to compensate, because yes, of course, we have daily stand-ups, we have our check-ins during the day, we even have different group meetings, but still, especially if there's a sort of an idea that you need to work on, you need somebody to discuss it with, sort of a sounding board at least, if not some collaboration, and it's that part was sort of how do we do that in this virtual setup. Did you have any experience with that, maybe?
How to kind of bring those little, let's call them water cooler moments, or like meeting in the kitchen.
Those ones, but maybe even a little bit bigger than that, just like you want to discuss, you have an idea, you want to discuss it. How do you do this in a virtual setup? Yeah, for me it was a first, to be honest. I'm not sure if we if we did it justice, but yeah, we tried. But it was kind of weird, especially because at least I'm used to using all these visual props, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
like drawing on a board, post-its everywhere, you know, like a piece of paper, different colors of pens, you know, like
Yeah.
really visual. And in this remote setup, I don't know, even if we were using digital tools for that, it still didn't feel quite there, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two, that's what we were missing. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's not easy. I'm totally like that. Like if my wall is not covered in sticky notes, like I have these, you know, these like magic walls where you can kind of have like a whiteboard with this plastic stuff you just put on the wall. Like I have that over there in my like living room area. Um and like I like to just kind of draw stuff on the wall, take a step back and be like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's not easy to fully translate that. Personally, I like the tool Mural a lot. I know that a lot of people also use Miro, which is basically kind of like an online whiteboard where you can do, like you can put all the sticky notes. You can actually, like if you have like an iPad or some kind of tablet and a pen, um, you can actually draw on it. But yeah, it's not really the same, but I guess it's the closest we can do. I also know about two of my colleagues who, because they have to collaborate a lot on something they're working on at the moment and um, talk a lot, sometimes it's hard if you write a Slack message and then you have to wait for the other person to see it and get back to you. And by then you're just like, I needed this real quick. um, they keep an open Google Hangout for the whole day. They will turn the cameras off and mute themselves and work. And whenever someone's like, I really need to like just quickly talk with the other person, they'll just unmute themselves, be like, hey, yo, were you there? Can we just quickly chat? And then once they're done with whatever they were talking about, they'll just mute themselves again and go back to work. This obviously best works in like a small like 2 people setup, I guess. Not usually, if it's like 8 people, it's probably going to get crazy and messy. So that I wouldn't recommend. um, so yeah, other than that, it's really like get together real quick, find some online tool that you feel comfortable with, and try to make the best of the situation.
Uh, we still don't have any questions from other participants. People, please feel free to ask anything. Yeah. So another thing that was sort of uh, going around my mind is in this during this period of isolation, you know, different people had different reactions to that. So did you experience any sort of um, I don't know, different emotions or maybe even change in behavior? And how did you handle that?
Not so much a change in behavior, but I'm happy to say that within my team that I work with, there's a lot of trust. So people will actually just tell you how they feel. Like when we do these check-ins at the beginning of our meetings, just like, how's everyone feeling? And people will just be like, terrible. I hate this. I hate all of this. This is the worst. And then you kind of have to come back from that and get into okay, but now we're going to do some refinement about tickets. Hey, how about that? Or like whatever you're working on. Um, but yeah, I found that just making room for these emotions and letting people feel or voice that they feel terrible about some things um, has helped. So just letting it out, and then at some point we're all like, okay, and now we're just gonna take a deep breath and start doing whatever we're meant to do in the meeting. Yeah, luckily no one has like really changed, but
Did anybody here had any negative experience in terms, yeah, of unexpected reactions, or maybe even, you know, you weren't aware that something was happening, but it was, and you found out when it was already, I don't know, maybe too late or in a difficult situation? Anybody? No?
People are very quiet today.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, well, we have something in chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bana says, any recommendations for newcomers into team organization and how to establish a connection with new colleagues using remote-only methods of communication, especially if we are talking about an agile team where close collaboration is necessary, how to overcome the distance. So, Bana, do you want to join us? Unmute yourself and just talk with Lisa directly.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
perfect.
Well,
If you need any more, you know, explanation of the setting and the situation, just let me know. But
yeah, I'll stop talking, and then you just ask me if I'm not actually answering your question.
okay.
I mean, I have a person on my team who joined recently. She did have the chance to be in the office for a little bit at least. So she didn't just join, but she did not have a lot of time. And we have a one-on-one, even though like I'm not her manager or anything, but we talk regularly. Her and I were usually the two people that are always in the virtual coffee meetups, and then the rest of the team sometimes join, like different people at different times. So we try to get a lot of FaceTime. In our situation, it got a little easier because we're actually, I joined her Dungeons and Dragons group, so we actually get some FaceTime outside of work as well. But generally, yeah, try to talk to people. If you're in a one-on-one, that's definitely a situation where I personally prefer cameras on. And yeah, just kind of be available for any kinds of questions at any time. And another thing we've done is kind of have collaborative work meetings where we'll both be online and we'll work on something together and then figure stuff out together. One time we were 3 people, so we also had our head of engineering, the QA person, and me were like just kind of jamming on things, and we're like, oh, since you're here, I have this question, and then we're like all doing something and then talked about the results. So it just kind of felt like we're sitting in the office together in a way.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Cool.
Anybody else has any experience with the newcomers during this remote period? No? Okay. Yeah, we had some newcomers, not on my team, but in the company. Another PM came. So what we did, at least during this onboarding period, we sort of prepared, well, I don't know, let's call it a program during the week, where we laid out different topics that we thought would be of interest to him to actually hear and to learn about. And yeah, so we arranged meetings with different people in the company. Of course, we had daily check-ins with him just to see if we're on the right track, if we missed something, did maybe he remembered something else that he wants to hear or didn't hear yet and would like to, and so on. So we sort of made this first 2 weeks actually fully dedicated to getting to know the overall company, the overall business, but then also products and the way of working, and then the teams, and then specifically his team that he was going to be working with and his product that he was going to be leading. So yeah, that's also something that you can to set as much as you can for the people to actually learn about the overall sort of big picture, and then to go into specifics and more detailed things. But of course, when it comes to working with the team, I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult. For me at least. I don't know, maybe somebody's used to, but it's doable. Yeah, you just need to figure out, you know, how you would do this if you were doing it in person, and then sort of think about the alternative for the online world. What would that be?
Yeah, we have a buddy system. So like we always have that. So we keep that, and that seems to be working pretty well. And yeah, we're just also with new joiners that were not on my team, we're just scheduling calls, and then you have some time to chat, get to know the person as a person, and then I, for example, will quickly talk about the product that I lead, so that people kind of know what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do we have another question maybe? No? Okay.
Would you say
Okay.
that these...
Yeah. I had a couple of things to add to your diverse portfolio of extracurricular and games. Yeah. We did online Pictionary, which was fun.
Cool.
which was sort of just to relax and to hang out a little bit. And another thing, we did happy hour. So yeah, on Friday at 4, you know, like everybody comes with their alcohol of choice or their drink of choice, and we just sit around and chat. And everybody got the sort of assignment to find at least one joke to tell. You know?
I like that.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm cool. Terrible at telling jokes, so yeah. But anyway, that was the deal.
That's cool. Yeah, we've done that too and played. There's a page called scribble.io where you can you take rounds and have
that's
to
the online Pictionary.
Yeah. So we did that, and one time we played Cards Against Humanity, but that also really depends on company culture, I would say. I would not play that with probably not anyone I've ever worked with, but yeah. So I see Anya also has a question, and she does not have a mic on her computer. Yep. Okay. Cool. So in your experience, would you say that these new circumstances confirmed your culture and everything you've built before, or were there significant changes in the way that you behave and collaborate? So I haven't even been at Finiata for that long either. So I started in January, so I had a bit more than 2 months within, like, in the office. And we have 2 offices, one here in Berlin in Germany and one in Poland in Warsaw. So my team was like in 2 places already anyways. So some of the things were not completely new for us because we were already used to having people that were not in the office with us. I think generally it probably confirmed the culture. Because if you don't really care about like your coworkers, or you don't have this like I don't know, like having these kinds of relationships that you build with your team, where you build trust and, like, you know, through being empathetic and just getting to know the people and not just be like, oh, you're a developer, okay, whatever, or I don't know. So I think for me, I would say it confirmed it, because if you build relationships with people, it gets easier because all the communication and the way you can communicate with people depends on the kind of relationship you have with them. So yeah, build good relationships through empathy and conversations. And then it definitely is easier because you have a different understanding for the other person, and the chances that something gets lost in this virtual communication is a lot lower. Does that answer your question, Anya? Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's sort of interesting topic. So how does the company culture relate to the culture within a team, and has it changed in any way during this period of remote work? For you, I mean, do you know?
I feel like it hasn't changed that much. I mean, it probably has, but when you're in it the whole time, you don't really notice if things change around you. I would say that we might have even gotten closer as people because we have this weird new shared experience. So, and yeah, it's given us moments where we talk about like how this is weird or terrifying or uncomfortable, or just how's the situation different in Poland than it is in Germany, and those kinds of things. And being so intentional about the remote communication, now that everybody is remote, actually improved our overall communication, because before we were like two groups, one in Germany, one in Poland, and we were remote, but we didn't really put that much emphasis on the communication outside of like whatever is necessary for work, because we had like, you would chat to the people that were in the same office as you outside of the meetings, but now everyone's talking to everyone more in a way. So yeah, I would say it might have even made it a little better.
Anya is commenting if the culture was healthy when it's easy, but I think the problem was with the companies that were bad in communication to start with. So this only maybe made it obvious. That was my guess.
Yeah, I would agree that this emphasizes where you're at, but I also think you obviously you won't change a whole company culture single-handedly. That would be a bit much, but you can definitely positively influence the communication within your team. I did a bunch of things that were not like company wide or anything in the beginning, especially when we started being all remote. I think there were some other people who also did it with their teams, but like we started doing virtual coffees within our team before it became a company-wide thing. Now we actually have like a random coffee match with someone else, so people outside of your team, so that you also get to talk to those people. But you can just go ahead and go in and make the communication within your team better. And then other people will see it and be like, oh, this is like a fun idea. Like we've had random people from other teams join our virtual coffees because they're like, oh, this is really cute. Can I join? Like, sure, yeah, everyone can join. I mean, we don't talk about work anyway, so come join us and let's talk about, I don't know, whatever is on your mind.
Okay, there's another one from Ingmar. Do you believe the current experience of forced remote collaboration will have a long-term post-corona effect on how teams collaborate and organize themselves within Piñata, or also for other companies? If so, a positive one?
So as Ingmar's name might give away, he actually also works at Piñata, because you can see his email.
I guess.
That's his name.
Okay.
I do think there will be a long-term effect. And I mean, I hope that especially companies that were not remote friendly before see how this is not a terrible thing. Like working remotely is not impossible. It for a lot of people, not working remotely is not possible. Like if you have, I don't know, chronic illnesses or like a disability or whatever, there's like a bunch of reasons why you might not be able to go to an office. But now that more companies know that like remote work is actually possible, I feel like that's actually opening them up to way more talent than before, also from like other parts of the world and those kinds of things. So I think that would be one of the effects that I'm actually hoping to see. I think like the collaboration in itself, I can definitely speak for my team. I do think we've established some good new ways to have conversations and have more of them. And I think that is happening across all of the company. So I would say that in general will have a positive effect to help people just be, like communicate in a more intentional way. I think that's kind of the difference, that now that everyone's remote, you have to be a lot more intentional about your communication with each other. And since everyone's like learning this now and practicing it for a while now, and we don't even know how much longer we'll be practicing this intentional communication, I think it will, even when we're like in the office again, this kind of intentional communication definitely helps to be clearer and like be understood better in any kind of situation.
Cool, thanks. Thanks, Ingvar. Yeah, another thing that sort of came to me while you were talking about this is, so in every team you have different types of people, you know, different personalities. And what happens if there's a sort of introvert that really doesn't vocalize as much as they should have, perhaps in this situation? And when you're in an office, you know, like in direct communication, you can pick up a lot of nonverbals, you can see the behavior and different things. But what happens with that kind of people, you know, team members in this sort of setup? Did you have any experience with that, maybe?
I think what's important is that this is like another thing that I'm very passionate about is facilitation. I think every product manager should learn how to facilitate well. And the reason is because most of the time you have to facilitate like what everyone else is doing or saying or like collaborating on. And if you're doing a good job, there's a few things, like you will create a safe space, hopefully. So with good relationships in your team, be it like having empathy and trust within the team will help you to make sure that any meeting will feel like a safe space so that people feel more comfortable sharing, talking, speaking up. And it's always a fine line. You have to find a balance to encourage people who are more quiet and shy and maybe a little introverted and not make them feel uncomfortable because you're kind of putting them on the spot. Most of the time, or like I've had good experiences with a mixture of one-on-ones and then just making sure that meetings feel safe. With one of my team members in my job at TELUS and when I was in Canada, he is a very quiet person. I mean, a really large team. We were 16 people all together, which is like a really large team. So in retros, he would just sit in a corner and code and not participate. He'd just be there because he had to. And then I would just do one-on-one meetings with them and be like, hey, I just wanted to check in, let's grab a coffee and not make it formal. So that also sometimes helps. And then he would open up and we like ended up, I don't know, having like 1.5 hour coffee meetings because he was giving me so much feedback about the team and what's working and what's not working and what he has been observing, and those kinds of things. And it was super helpful. And because we'd done that, he trusted me, and he had like a few other team members he trusted, and then some he didn't really know that well yet, but it made him come out of his shell, I guess, in a way. So at some point he actually actively participated in the retros. But it's a process, and I would say this is definitely easier in person and probably takes a little longer to do remotely.
Cool, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Yeah, so in that sense, in the companies that you worked so far, I'm just gonna guess you haven't been the line manager of your team, right?
No.
Okay, so how do you collaborate with the line manager in generally and specifically now in this sort of situation where everything is remote?
Yeah. So with my line manager, I have one-on-ones.
Not your personally, but for the team.
The other ones. Okay. Well,
for the team, yeah.
So we have like different line managers, I guess, for the different roles. So like a front end lead and a back end lead, for example. And most of the time I don't actually work with them very closely. Because they are like a chapter lead, so they will do like coaching and like architectural questions and those kinds of things, and that most of the time is brought back to the team through the person or the persons in that role. And generally also things like priorities. I think that's always a good example. Our front-end team has a big refactoring undertaking at the moment, and there's like a lot of things that they want to make better, and that's great, but at the same time we can't obviously dedicate 100% of the time to refactoring because we also want to optimize our products, build new products. I just launched a new product, so obviously I needed someone to build that, and so it's important to understand what everyone's priorities are and goals are. And we basically used all of that input, like knowing what are the business goals, what are like technical goals that the front and back end teams have, like QA as well. So we would just basically take all of those things and come together as a team, and then create team goals out of those, so that in the end we wouldn't, or like I wouldn't have to kind of, I don't know, go back and forth with the line manager, because in the team we have goals that don't actually work together. So yeah, that's kind of how we do things.
Okay, and what about, are you at some point giving your feedback on the team and individually people within the team in terms of, I don't know, their performance, progress, development? How does that work?
We have like very regular feedback cycles. So generally there is a very open feedback culture. So people will also just come up to you and be like, hey, I would like to give you some feedback, like when's a good time? Because sometimes you don't just want to throw it at someone. So there's a lot of that already, and there are some formalized processes where we do regular 360-degree feedbacks, so that a line manager can ask people that work directly with a person to give feedback. They can request it to make sure that they get all the information from everyone, and then also every person can just request feedback from whoever they want to. So like, hey, we did this project together, it'd be great to get some feedback from you. So you can do it through a tool, or just walk up to the person and ask them.
Okay, and do you have a Scrum Master or Agile coach within a team, or somebody that's working with a team in that sense?
No, we don't. well, before the whole crazy COVID stuff, we were looking for an Agile coach. And I mean, we will probably still look for one after all this weird stuff stopped. But no, we don't have anyone right now. I have worked in different setups. I don't really mind not having a Scrum Master because in one of my first product roles, I was working very closely with two people who used to be Agile coaches and Scrum Masters, but were then like a head of QA and DevOps engineer. So they taught me a lot. So I feel pretty okay with all that stuff. So I'm just, we take turns running retro and those kinds of things so that it's not just me. That kind of works pretty well.
So in the sense of team coaching and developing team as an entity, is that sort of part of your role, or is it on the team itself, or how does that work? How does the team develop further?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how if it's defined officially or anything.
Unofficially,
but I would say yes. I do. I feel responsible for that, at least for sure. I think because I am the product manager that has to interface with everybody, and as I said earlier, facilitation is a thing that I think is very important for product managers. I do kind of try to use these skills with the team, which also means like team building stuff. We've recently done an exercise because, as I said, I joined in January and then gradually took over, and then we split a larger existing team into two smaller teams. And so we started out writing down our team manifesto. What are the values that are important to us as a team? There are things in there like holding each other accountable, but also having fun. I think our team motto came out of that, which is you don't have to have a sense of humor to have fun, which, so we actually like to laugh together a lot. Even if someone says something's terrible, we'll still make a joke out of it, but like it just works within that team. And we wrote down like, what does that actually mean? So if we say like, okay, our value is to hold each other accountable, what does that actually mean in our day-to-day work? Because it's nice to say all these values and you're like, oh, we want to, be able to disagree. We want to do this and that. And like those things are important to us. But then when you're in a meeting and you actually disagree on something and then you just fight and there's no result, that's not really how that works. So if you say our value is that it's important that people can disagree, then you would also have to define that you might have points where you need a decider. And then maybe it's the product manager, maybe it's a line manager, maybe it's, I don't know, someone, but you have to make sure that even if you disagree, you'll commit to something and then move on. So I think that's, those are things we're doing, and I hope, I sure hope that they develop the team as a team, but it feels like it for sure.
Okay. Does anybody here have experience with working with a team that has their own coach, whether it's a Scrum Master or Agile coach or somebody else just taking over that part? I'm just asking because I think that kind of role would be interesting to see how it works in a remote environment, I'm not sure how that setup would look and how well it would turn out, That's why I'm asking. Okay, nobody. Cool. Okay, we don't have any questions from our participants, and I think I've asked more or less everything that I wanted to touch upon, but do you have anything else, Lisa?
No, I think I told you everything that I know and I believe in. This is obviously not like a recipe where you're like, oh, if I do these things that she said, it's going to be perfect. Try out what works for you, what works for your team. That's always the thing. I would be curious if you would humor me one last time and write in the chat which of the things you found interesting that I talked about that you will actually try out, especially things like, oh, virtual coffees, or I don't know, guess the movie, which is super fun, I'm telling you. I will share the, I can share the deck afterwards if you're interested, so that you can look up all this stuff. Cool. So
sure,
yeah, write in the chat what you want to try out. Please write in the chat.
Okay, maybe we've lost our audience. I don't know. No, everybody's here.
They already forgot what we talked about.
Okay, we have Anya. I will try using more mural. Cool.
So fun.
Okay. Yeah, that seems it from the comments.
I'm gonna stop the screen share and I can actually just drop the link to
the
deck in the chat.
Well, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure. And yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just
link to the deck, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And thank everybody who participated today.